Hey, folks, it's time for the quote of the day. And today is January 1st, 2026. So I wanted to try to find a quote within the parameters of it being someone's birthday. But I wanted to find a quote that kind of would lead me into like the new me, right? The new me for 2026, whatever that may mean. And so I really did. I spent a lot of time, spent a lot of time both yesterday and today trying to find a quote that resonated with me, that made me feel like I was leading with a good foot. And I think I found one. Many of you are not going to agree with that. Many of you are going to be like, "This is fucking mean. Why would you say this?" Or you're going to be like, "Oh, this is too easy," or whatever. And I get that. I understand that. But today's quote is by a man that I absolutely like. I feel like I should talk about him. I feel like we should be talking about him. I feel like he kind of is at the center of kind of one of the reasons why we are where we are in America today. Today's quote is by J.D. Salinger. Now, you're going to recognize that name because he's the author of perhaps one of the most controversial books ever written in America. Uh, the only reason I say that is not because the book is actually controversial, because it's not. If you've ever read Catcher in the Rye, then you absolutely know there's nothing in it that's controversial. If you haven't read it, it's basically follows a teenage boy, a little bit older, but teenage boy Holden Caulfield, I should say, that is growing up in New York City, and the stuff that happens at that point in time, especially back then. Not the shiny, pretty New York City that we all imagine in our heads when we see Times Square and shit. The real New York City that many of us grew up knowing about. That's what it's about. And so yeah, there is some seediness and there is some smexual, as they say on the app here, conduct. And there is, I mean, he's a fucking teenage boy. People lost their fucking minds. This book was an immediate success. This book set the world on fire. It really did. And the problem with it was that he didn't really see the problem with it. A lot of people that read it were like, "What's the big deal?" But it just got so caught up by the religious movements, because it is rather, it does question some things in religion. And so the religious movements, especially Christianity, read about it, saw about it, probably never read the book, but just heard about it and were like, "Oh my, what? My goodness, how dare they?" And "Oh, I'm the vapors," that kind of thing, and so that's really what happened. And they banned A Catcher in a Rye. They banned it everywhere. It was banned everywhere. As a matter of fact, in the 60s, if a teacher so much as mentioned it, they would be fined, and if they actually tried to teach about it, they would be fired. This has been this way for fucking 75 years, right? Like, it's fucking weird. It's fucking weird to me that this book, that for some reason this fucking book is the one that has come to symbolize so much about like evil and debauchery and like the way that we manipulate and control people's minds. And it's just so mind-numbingly stupid. So if you have the opportunity and you have not read A Catcher in the Rye, I do suggest that you read it. It's real. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not gonna warp your spine and make you grow horns or anything. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not a great. It's not even a great read. And he knew that. He knew that. And the critics that actually read it back then were like, no, the content of the book is good. It was an instant classic, but it wasn't a well-written book. It wasn't like this, like, master manipulator that was like, there was no Machiavellianism in it. It was just that. It was just, him doing his thing, writing this book about a story that he later talked about, and and said, "Yeah, this is about how I grew up. This is about what it was like for me." But it felt really good to get some of that out there, because it was debaucherous. It was kind of seedy and slimy and gritty, and it was that. And so that's what it was like for him growing up. That's what it was like for a lot of young men in fucking New York City at that point in time. And I just I like in the late 40s, early 50s, that's what it was like. That's just, I mean, it's just facts. And people have a hard time with facts, apparently. Now here's the thing I wanted to talk about with JD Salinger before I get to the quote, which is just one sentence. uh For those of you that don't know, he became a recluse. He did put out more work, but he, as one journalist once wrote about him, he had become a champion of privacy to the point where, and this wasn't for lack of trying. I mean, there were investigators and journalists, and I mean, keep in mind, he wrote this salacious, horrifying book, and it was, changing the world and corrupting children and all this stuff. And so there were people that were looking for this motherfucker. Like he was trying hard to hide. And I have to assume, based on what we know about today's world, that back then people were just so upset by the clamor over it, by the fervor, that he got threats, that people tried, people would show up and people would try to hurt him and things like this. Now, there have been autobiographies that were written about him. I guess they're not really autobiographies, but that's what they were called. Um, because they were about growing up around him. Like, they were about the lives of, I don't remember who it was. One of his was his daughter, I think, and one was somebody else. I don't remember. But and I never read those, so I don't really know. But there are supposedly a lot of like kind of lascivious things that he was into or that he did, and I'm not gonna speak to that because, like I said, I haven't read it, and he was such a recluse that, like, it's not like he knew a lot of people, right? Like he may have been domineering, he may have been controlling, he may have been a sick fuck. I don't know. I don't know any of those things, so I can't really speak to his character because nobody knew anything about him. He was a fucking recluse, and he I don't remember when he died, but he lived for like 91 years, so he did see modern, America. He knew what it was, and he was able to kind of move with the times and really keep up with the fact that for basically his entire adult life he was being hunted, he was being sought after, because he was a recluse, because it was considered a get to get pictures of him, to get, and he actually did have a legal team that represented him, and when people would try to snap pictures of him, he would send lawyers after him. And so I just thought it was interesting to talk about this guy because, here he creates this book that is basically just sort of a coming of age story, and then he's demonized and spends basically the rest of his life in hiding. And like I said, maybe you don't want your like 8-year-old reading A Catcher in the Rye, but if you're a teenager and you want to understand context of what it was like growing up in that time for people in that time in big cities, I mean, you're not going to find a book that illustrates it better than that. And so anyway, we'll get to the quote. J.D. Salinger once said, and I agree with this. I actually made a video about it, not knowing that I was going to use this as the quote of the day. I made a video this morning talking about something like this. Uh, he said, "All morons hate it when you call them a moron." That's the quote of the day. I know. I'm starting strong in 2026. I've decided to turn over a new leaf. The reason why I'm using this quote, and I think that this is important, is because I'm going to try to actually have a new message going forward. And it's one that I would like you to join me on. If you've watched this far into the video, then you're one of the people that watches my fucking videos. And I want you to join me on this. I'm making myself a promise, and this quote is at the heart of it. I'm making myself a promise that for this point going forward, I will not be allowing bullshit to continue to move without me saying something about it. When I see people being fucking morons, when I see people doing stupid things, when I hear people doing stupid things, I'm going to be calling it out. That's my promise that I'm making, is I'm going to be calling it out from now on. Because, you know what? He's absolutely right. This is 100% correct. All morons hate it when you call them a moron. It's absolutely true. Smart people don't care because they know that they're intelligent. It's kind of an insecurity thing, right? When people are insecure about something, they take offense to it. People talk about my weight or my hair or whatever, and a lot of times it kind of stings a little bit. But when people say, well, you're not very smart, I just look at them like, what? Okay, all right. Because it doesn't bother me because I know that I'm somewhat intelligent. And I don't say that to brag. I say that because it's true. And so from this point on, you can count on me to call out bullshit when I see it. That's all. Happy birthday, J.D. Salinger. Everybody else, take care of yourself, take care of others. I'll talk to you soon.